It is 7 o'clock.
It is.
If we can go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Noblesville Common Council, and since our mayor's already stated, I'm going to ask him to lead the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Ms. Lees, will you call the roll?
Mr. Ayr.
Present.
Mr. Boyce.
Here.
Mr. Davis. Mr. O'Connor.
Present.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Schwartz.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Mr. Sparks.
Present.
Ms. Wiles.
Present.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Next item is approval of the minutes from our July 12th, 2022 meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from July 12th. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Approval of the agenda.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Smith.
I move that we amend the agenda to remove miscellaneous number 4 and add new ordinance for discussion, ordinance number 50-07-22 as amended.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to amend the agenda to remove miscellaneous item number 4 and add in ordinance number 50-07-22 as amended. All those in favor of amending the agenda, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Petitions or comments by citizens who are present. I do not have any cards, but if anyone would like to speak, please fill out a sheet in the back and then give it to the clerk. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything that you would like to share this evening?
Just briefly, I remind everyone that school starts next Monday, so obviously be out and be aware of school zones. Our officers will certainly be aware of those school zones. Consider yourself warned. And this Friday is the back-to-school bash at the new Beaver Stadium, so hopefully many of you can be out there and enjoy that. And those with school-age kids, set the alarms and get ready to roll. So, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Council committee reports. Downtown District Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. Downtown District Committee met on July 20th, 2022. Brian Ayr, Darren Peterson, myself, and Megan Wiles were present. We talked about a few topics during our meeting. Bridget Flowers was first. Mr. Rodewald stated that he expects installation to begin on August 8th, and traffic restrictions will also begin at that time on the bridge, just the one lane closest to the bridge. He expects it to be installed by Labor Day. We also talked about alley updates downtown. There's a proposed shade structure for the east alley and water mitigation feature in the south alley that he and Ailey McGill talked about. A lot of that is funded through an Our Town grant, which the city received a few years ago. Tonight, the Maple Avenue crosswalks are on the agenda, so I will not go over that, but that was up for approval as well. Then Mr. Rodewald also briefly touched on the NDOT project that will be happening in 2023 along Connor Street and how that will be affected. We'll start hearing more about that in the coming months, but that will be a major state project happening downtown on Connor Street. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Smith and the Downtown District Committee? Seeing none, I will move on to Mr. O'Connor and the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Madam President. We met July 21st. This is a rather brief meeting, but they will get lengthier here in the not too distant future. But additional appropriation for Gateway Arch, as Mr. Smith just alluded to, this was discussed. It's funding for the gates that will be installed on the east alley. So that I think will be coming to us for approval in the next 30 days, I would assume. But I think some of the details on foundations for the gates had to be worked out. But so that was one item. There is a transfer appropriation on the agenda, which we'll talk about a little later. I think that may have to do with some of the downtown committee activities. We talked about another grant appropriations, and these are routine that come to us every quarter from the OFA. The most important piece of that, there's a $15,000 grant from HUD for community connections for people with disability grants, and then discuss the $3,106,421 ARPA grant that we received that's got to be appropriated by 12/31/24, which I'm sure we'll do. A few other items that are on the agenda tonight, I won't go into those, and we talked a little bit about investments with interest rates finally starting to move up a little bit. That becomes more attractive potentially. So Mr. Spalding's looking into some different funds with the vendor that we had agreed to do this with, but given where rates were, it didn't make a lot of sense to be moving money around. So some of that will start to occur, probably $5 million increments, and then those dollars will be moved back and forth as we need them from a liquidity perspective. But we'll finally be able to earn a little interest on some of those reserves. So with that, the claims come to you with a favorable recommendation.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith?
I move to approve the claims.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the claims as presented. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Previously discussed ordinances. Council to consider ordinance number 43-07-22, an ordinance approving additional appropriations in the Downtown Development Fund for crosswalk enhancements. Mr. Spalding.
Madam President, members of the council, Jeff Spalding, CFO and Controller, this is the second reading on this additional appropriation ordinance, so you're familiar with it. Again, it's $85,000 from the Downtown Development Fund to be allocated for crosswalk enhancements at a couple intersections downtown. And the kind of relevant factor around this item is that each year in the budget, we plan to bring in $500,000 of revenue to put into the Downtown Development Fund, and that all gets budgeted. But in past years, not all of that $500,000 increment has been spent each year, so balances have accumulated in the fund. So this is a request to appropriate some of those balances above and beyond the $500,000 that's already planned for this year. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions of Mr. Spalding? All right. With that, I will open the public hearing for ordinance 43-07-22.
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor?
seeing no one from the public come forward, I move we close the public hearing for ordinance 43-07-22.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for ordinance 43-07-22. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I move we approve ordinance 43-07-22 as submitted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 43-07-22. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Lees?
Mr. Ayers?
Aye.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Sparks?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay. The ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
Council to consider ordinance number 46-07-22, an ordinance changing the zoning district from residential to downtown for approximately .6 acres at 1094 Connor Street. Joyce Ann Yelton.
Good evening. Joyce Ann Yelton, Development Services Manager in the Planning Department. Again, this was introduced at your last meeting. It is a request to rezone 3 parcels of property from what is currently R5 multifamily to DT Downtown Zoning District. It did come to you with a favorable recommendation for adoption from the Plan Commission. I will ask if you have any questions of staff. If not, in the audience is a applicant's representative.
Any questions for Ms. Shelton? Does the petitioner have anything that they would like to say?
Nothing further than that.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President,
If we approve this, can we get you to turn the cannon around so it doesn't face City Hall? Is that going to stay that way? Thank you.
is that a request? You're going to add that to the
No,
ordinance?
I'm just curious.
That's, we're not amending to.
No.
With that, Madam President, I will move that we approve ordinance 46-07-22 as submitted.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 46-07-22 as presented. This is a roll call vote. So please.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Sparks?
Aye.
Mr. Air?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay, the ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
New ordinances for discussion. Council to consider ordinance number 44-07-22, an ordinance approving additional appropriations in the Downtown Development Fund for the East Alley Gateway Arch and establishing a public hearing.
Move to introduce.
Actually, Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Smith.
I will move to postpone ordinance number 44-07-22 to our next regular
No,
meeting.
no, that's probably
You can second it, though, if you want.
good. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to postpone ordinance number 44-07-22. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
I should have known.
Thank you very much. Council to consider ordinance number 51-07-22, an ordinance annexing approximately 34 acres south of State Road 32, Westfield Road, and east of Hazeldale Road to be known as Midland Point Planned Development in Noblesville Township, establishing a public hearing, and resolution RC-37-22, adopting a fiscal plan.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Ms. Shelton.
Good evening again. This is the parcel of property that is basically located at the southeast corner of Hazeldale Road and State Road 32. It is going through a planning and eventually we'll get here, rezoning process. Part of the property is currently zoned commercial. The rest of the property is zoned single-family residential. They're going to rezone the property to what will be R5 and PB commercial in a different location than the PB is currently in. So there'll be approximately your acreage that will be towards State Road 32 will be the commercial, with the remaining acreage, approximately 21 acres, to the south of the commercial being all R5 residential. Again, this is an ordinance requesting the annexation into the city of Noblesville. Staff would ask that you set a public hearing for this ordinance at your August 9th meeting. Attached is also the fiscal plan that has been done by Baker Tilly. Basically talks about the parcels of property. This is a super voluntary annexation. Talks about, again, the cost of services, police protection, fire protection, emergency services, our non-capital services such as street maintenance, trash collection, parks, and the governmental administrative services. Also in that fiscal analysis was the capital improvement cost and analysis. We also basically showed the current assessed value and what eventually will be the proposed assessed value at the time of build-out. And with that, I would ask that you adopt the resolution and set the public hearing date for August 9th.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith,
I move to establish a public hearing for ordinance number 51-07-22 at our next regular meeting.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded to establish a public hearing for ordinance 51-07-22 at our next regular meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith,
I move to approve resolution RC-37-22.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded to approve resolution RC-37-22. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much. Next item that we have added in is ordinance number 50-07-22. And this is an amended version of an ordinance that we discussed and passed at our last meeting. And Ms. Shelton is going to share a little bit more with us about these additions or changes.
Okay, so basically what occurred at your last meeting, we didn't realize that the copy that was sent to you did not include the complete sign ordinance. Yeah.
Motion
Oh.
to introduce?
Thank you.
Second.
Sorry.
Okay. At your last meeting, there were two pages that were omitted from the ordinance. Basically, it was part of their sign package. And basically, what this sign package shows here is, right here at the very top, you can see there is basically a sign that's basically at the top of the building that says Hyde Park. The other sign that was omitted is on their leasing center or their community building. And it again is what we term as a projecting sign. Both of these signs in this particular zoning district would not be a permitted sign. That's why they were including them as part of their submittal in their request to rezone and adopt their own ordinance. Though that was the only changes.
Are those backlit? The ones in the building or, not the blade sign, imagine that's probably, that may be lit, I don't know.
Yeah, this one here is illuminated.
Yeah,
Let me see the other one. Doesn't necessarily look like it's illuminated.
It says internally lit, internally lit.
It says
channel.
internally lit metal channel letters, so it is.
that's not that big in relation to the building, that shouldn't be a big deal. As long as it doesn't have fireworks coming out of it at midnight or something like that.
Well, they didn't show it on this piece of paper, so I'm going to
Good.
say no, it doesn't.
But for a point of clarification, all of this language and the request for the signage was in the written documentation of the ordinance that we
Yes.
approved. It was simply these last two exhibits.
The
that were
last
not
two
included.
exhibits.
So we wanted to make sure that we're including these exhibits in with this ordinance so that it's all in one place together.
That is correct. The first page, which basically had to do with their, what I'm going to say, their entry ground signs, was a part of the package. Somehow, we just omitted the last two pages. But yes, it was a part of the ordinance. It's just the exhibits were missing.
Because it's just the addition, I would ask that we suspend the rules and pass this on first reading. But I can't make that motion.
Somebody make, I don't know what the ordinance number is.
Madam
Is
President?
there a number?
Yes.
Yes, it is 50-07-22.
There's the number,
Yeah.
so,
Madam President, I move to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 50-07-22 on first reading.
second.
It has been moved and seconded to suspend the rules and pass ordinance 50-07-22 on first reading. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith.
I move that we approve ordinance number 50-07-22 as amended.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 50-07-22 as amended. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Lees.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Sparks?
Aye.
Mr. Air?
Aye.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay, the ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Miscellaneous number 1, council to receive a summary of fiscally neutral second quarter appropriation transfers pursuant to resolution RC-1-22, section 1. Mr. Spalding.
Madam President, members of the council, this item was actually discussed a bit in the Finance Committee overview. And basically, what I'm doing is I'm meeting a requirement/pledge that I make to the council each year. At the beginning of the year, a practice we've recently begun is getting your approval up front to do small technical transfers, kind of on the fly, on the move, and then report them to the council quarterly so that you can see what we've done and they are within a certain limit. No transfer can be more than 50,000 in total by itself, and 125,000 in total for a quarter. And the last bit of the context here is this all happens because, as you're aware, in government, the budget's a legal document as well as a management document, and therefore the council, has the responsibility to approve all transfers, and this is the mechanism by which we can take some of those, kind of technical routine things off the agenda, shorten the length of the council meetings, and still meet that requirement. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to go through the list of items in more detail, but they are in your packet.
Any questions of Mr. Spalding?
I have one quick.
Yes.
Did the fiscal committee go through these or not? I don't care.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we went through them in detail in the
We
Finance
grilled
Committee.
Jeff.
One by one. We did go
I
through
thought
them.
that was part of the process, but
Yeah.
I was curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, miscellaneous item number 2, council to receive a summary of appropriation of second quarter grant proceeds pursuant to resolution RC-2-22. Mr. Spalding.
Yes, again, Madam President, members of the council, very similar concept to the last one, but slightly different as it relates specifically to grant proceeds. And again, the requirement that the council, as the fiscal body, appropriate funds that the city receives. But in this case, what this resolution provides for is that for grant proceeds that we receive, you're allowing my office to effectively appropriate them, make them available to the department to spend under the constraint that the use of the monies are tightly defined in unambiguous terms by the grant. So, you're not really losing much discretion in terms of how you appropriate the money because the grant constrains them. And then the other thing the other practice I've started including here is really any grant monies we receive, I identify in the summary document and say, hey, here's some other grant monies we received that we're not using that resolution for, but just so that you're aware of them, that's the reference to the ARPA funds that Councilor O'Connor mentioned. So basically, you can use this quarterly document as a kind of an update on what grant monies the city's received over the previous quarter. So, and again, we went through this in detail in the Finance Committee. Yeah.
Any questions of Mr. Spalding regarding this report? Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Miscellaneous item number 3, council to consider resolution RC-36-22, a resolution for property disposal pursuant to IC 36-1-11-9. Ms. Krupski, good evening.
All right, good evening, council. As you see in front of you, this is a resolution for property disposal. As a part of the Pleasant Street project, there were quite a few parcels. This one happens to be on 385, located at 385 Division Street. This property owner owns a property, and then we own property just to the east of it. We needed a portion of that property, of their southernmost portion of their property for the Pleasant Street project. They approached us with the idea of doing a property swap agreement. We looked into it, all of this area is in floodplain, so we felt like that was a good option for the city. And again, this property owner, the property that we own is not developable, all floodplain, and they're already maintaining it and keeping it in good order and mowing it. So we felt like it was a good deal for both of us. This morning, the Board of Works approved an agreement to exchange the personal property contingent upon your approval of this resolution tonight. The resolution does give me the authority to sign any of the deeds that are required for the swap agreement. I recommend that you approve this resolution.
Any questions, Ms. Karski?
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I move we approve Resolution RC-36-22 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution RC-36-22. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the end of our agenda this evening. Are there any council comments?
I was going to ask Mr. Spalding if he could introduce Ian
Sure.
while he's here.
Introduce our new Deputy Financial Officer, Ian Zelgowski, and he actually happened to bring his wife with him to this evening's council.
Thanks for having me tonight. It's my first council meeting. I just moved to Duke.
Yeah, if you'll come up to the microphone, please, just to make sure that those who are watching online can hear you.
Yeah, again, thank you for having me this evening. We just moved to Noblesville in February, so very excited to be here, be part of the team, hoping to do good things for the city, and looking forward to working with Jeff and keeping this ball rolling on improving and increasing our financial strengths.
Where'd you move from?
Well, we lived on the far east side of Indianapolis
Okay.
since 2017, but originally we're from northwestern Pennsylvania.
Welcome.
Terrific. Welcome to Noblesville.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I can say real quickly, he's already helping out, figuring out how to make our OFA SharePoint site work right so that people can access budget documents. So it's already out there.
Fabulous. Anything else? I will just make a comment that with the NDOT road project that is happening with the roundabout construction, the western entrance to Riverview Health is going to be closed starting this coming weekend. It will be closed for 30 days, but there is access through all internal roads of Riverview Health, so you'll enter in from either the east side or enter off of River Road and go through the shopping center. So there still will be plenty of access to Riverview Health, so please don't worry about that. And we are working very closely with NDOT to make sure that that is a smooth transition, and our public safety officials are helping out as well, so. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Jensen, can you stay for 1 second?